Welcome to Transition Talks, Business Exit and Retirement Strategies with Josh Ackerman. Get ready to be immersed in real-life experiences and strategies of business owners who have transitioned their enterprises, whether by selling or handing over the reins to the next generation. Through candid conversations and expert insights, Josh aims to provide practical tips and proven techniques to tackle the complexities of succession planning. Let's embark on your next chapter together.
Hello and welcome to the podcast Transition Talks with Josh Ackerman. Josh, how are you? Good to see you again.
Bill, it's good to see you. I'm doing well.
Well, listen, we left sort of the last time we were together. We left in the middle of the conversation.
We did.
You were talking about ways that you can raise the value of your business.
Yes.
And we went through the first three ways.
Right.
So if anybody is interested in going back to those, and I would recommend that if you didn't hear them, go back and listen to it. Just go to the prior episode. You don't have to stop listening to this one. You keep listening to this one, okay? Because 4, 5, and 6 probably fit really nicely with 1, 2, and 3, the way numbers usually do.
Yes, exactly.
So we left off in anticipation for number 4, Josh.
We did. So, and this is number 4 is a regional dialect question. So, do you call it a teeter-totter or a seesaw?
Oh, man, I have called it both in my lifetime. I'm trying to think when I was a little kid, I might have called it a teeter-totter.
Yeah. So anyway, so we've got a board and it's either up or down, right?
Right.
And what we're talking about in the world of business is cash flow. Does the business create cash or does the business consume cash? And the way to start thinking about that is when the buyer comes to you and buys the business and they write you a check, figuratively or literally, they now own the business. And are they going to have to go back and write a second check to buy inventory, to hire people, to do all of these things in order to go out and make money?
Yeah.
Because what we have to remember is, and I think we talked about this last time, the last mile of the marathon for you leading up to the sale of your business, right? Let's pretend that's the marathon. So you're at 26.2 and you're done. The buyer of the business, that's mile 1 of their marathon.
Right.
So they've got to pick it up. They've got to make it work. And if the buyer is looking at your business and says, okay, I wrote Bill a nice check, but I'm going to have to write a second check the same size or bigger to keep the business running because it takes a long time to get paid or the operating expenses are really high. It could be one of, any different way that you get to it. Then the buyer is probably going to look and say, okay, if I've got to write $100 and it's going to take me $70 to keep the business running, I'm probably only going to pay Bill $30. If I've got $100 and it only takes $30 to keep the business running, Bill's check gets bigger.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense.
And so that's the teeter-totter.
Yeah, no, that does make sense, as a matter of fact. And it's not going to come as a surprise to them because they will have done their due diligence, right?
Exactly. Right. They would have looked at the books. And so even if you sat down, the night before the test, you sit down to read the textbook and try and learn everything.
Right.
Which I may or may not have done in my life. The buyer is going to do the due diligence and they're going to go back several years. So they're going to see which kind of business this is. So in order to improve it, in order to get on the right side of the teeter-totter, we have to look at how does the business charge for its activity. And an example would be home security. So we're going to run a home security company and we're going to get paid for installing the system.
Okay.
And so we get a lead, we contact the lead, they think it's a good idea. We go out, technicians spend a couple hours putting in the system. We bill the client writes us a check, we're done. The other way to look at that would say, we are going to install the security system and we'll get paid for installing the security system. Then we are going to monitor the security system. And we are going to get paid to monitor the security system.
Yes.
Now, again, making up the numbers, it could be $200 up front for the security installation.
Yep.
And $20 a month for monitoring. But over the course of the year, the monitoring produces more revenue than the installation.
Makes sense. Yep.
And this is another one of those things that unfortunately you've got to look at, or you will hope that you had looked at this well before you decided to go sell the business.
I would think that you would have, but what do I know?
That's right. That's right. Because I'm not sure in this instance, I'm not sure how much of a quick fix there is. But I think it is one of those questions that is worth looking at. It's one of those questions that you ought to spend some time looking at your business and trying to figure out, where does the money come from?
I can give you a really good example of what you're talking about too,
Yeah.
because over the years I've known guys who were commercial real estate developers. And there's a lot of money going in and building, commercial complexes, little strip malls and things like that, right?
Right.
And you'd think, well, they would be happy there. And then I found out they had a whole other business attached to that business that was the maintenance of the properties they built. So the beauty in what you just said is they get paid once and then they get paid twice.
Yep.
So every job carries two paychecks with it. Now they're not forcing people to buy the maintenance contract, obviously, but they know what they're doing, and they were very good. So they had a sustaining flow of cash. And I would imagine, well, I know if I were looking to buy a business, that's the business I'd want to buy.
Yeah. Well, I think you definitely want to buy, and we'll get into this with the next one. So it's a good segue. You want to buy the business where you don't have to get up every day and start over.
Yes.
Right. Which brings us to the next one. And this is the wonders of recurring revenue.
Oh, I didn't even know number 5 was that.
See, look at that.
Ding, ding, ding. Look at that.
Ding, ding. And so recurring revenue is the idea that if I have to get up every morning, and in my world, when I started in financial services, I was selling life insurance. And life insurance, when I started in 2007, you started every year at zero. So you got paid for what you sold that year.
Wow. Okay.
And there was some residual, but the payments on existing policies were much smaller than they used to be and ended much faster than they used to. The days of go out, sell a whole bunch of policies, work really hard, and then coast along on the renewal payments doesn't really work very well anymore.
Okay.
So the idea of you start over every quarter, every week, every day, I understand that logic and I understand that idea.
Yeah.
The example here is selling flowers, of all things.
Okay.
So we think about who buys flowers. Well, we've got a funeral, we've got a first date,
Mhm.
a wedding.
Oh, yeah.
You went and did something wrong. The Texan phrase that my wife taught me is doghouse roses, right? You buy the doghouse roses at
I
the
know
grocery
that.
store.
I know that phrase. Yeah. I may or may not have bought a few of those in my lifetime.
Yeah. So we have those, but those are realistically individual events, right?
Yeah.
That's an
Right.
event-driven purchase.
Okay.
So a company called H Bloom looked at selling flowers, but they looked at it slightly differently. They said, okay, who buys flowers on a consistent basis? And they found wedding venues,
Mm.
funeral homes,
Hmm.
and high-end restaurants, fine dining restaurants
Oh, okay.
would buy flowers on a continuous basis.
They would
So
be a
they,
consistent customer.
yep, right. So they set up a subscription model. So the restaurant, for example, gets a slightly lower price than retail by signing up for a subscription.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And the flower company, H Bloom, delivers the flowers to the client location. So the restaurant doesn't have to send someone to the flower store blocks away
Right.
and take whatever they can get. It's organized, it's streamlined, the flowers appear.
Hmm.
Now, the value of the event-driven customer on average was like $30. When you
Okay.
figure in, you're buying a couple flowers for Mother's Day and then, larger arrangements for special occasions,
Yeah.
averages down to about $30. The subscription model took the average up to $4,500 because they're selling this person flowers several times a week,
Right.
right? Year long. And this was an interesting part of the case study that I really liked when I learned it. The average flower store, florist shop, is going to throw away 60% of their inventory due to spoilage.
Get out of here. Really?
Right?
That much?
Yep, that much. It's going to
Wow.
wilt. So they're just going to rush through it. H Bloom was throwing away 2% of their inventory.
Wow.
So you start building out the numbers on that. They only buy for the subscriptions that they have. They know their demand.
Hmm.
Right? The corner florist shop has no idea what their demand's going to be. He doesn't know what silly thing Bill's going to do.
Right.
And need flowers.
No, that makes total sense. It's like I've always looked at flower shops and thought, I wonder how much inventory here gets tossed. I thought it was probably high. It never occurred to me that it is that high.
Yeah.
I thought maybe 40%, like maybe 40% of the inventory got tossed. Wow.
Well, and these numbers might be a little old, but I think the orders of magnitude are probably
No. Well, I was going to say
Yeah.
the order of magnitude is so great. I don't even have to be good at math to understand what you just talked about.
Exactly. You and I can do this math
Yes,
in our
exactly.
head. Yeah. Right. We can do this.
4,000 is a whole lot more than 30.
Yeah. Right. Right. I can look at those numbers and there's more. Yeah, I can see it.
Right.
Exactly. So the next one and the last one for today is an idea called monopoly control. And monopoly control is, what is it that you do better than everybody else?
Okay, so then we're not getting into illegal
We're not getting into right. Yeah, we're not getting into antitrust legislation.
No.
This is find the thing that you do better than everyone else.
Okay.
Find your advantage and do that. And so we're going to look at laptop computers.
Okay.
And we're going to look at, we have Apple and HP and Dell. And we have Apple, elegant, it's a lifestyle, it's aspirational. You want to be who you think you're going to be holding an Apple computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dell nailed direct to consumer in the early laptop wars. Dell did a fantastic job of your small business, your students going to school, you go on the website. I did it back in the day. You build up your computer, it goes through their production process, and it shows up at your doorstep. Really cool.
Yeah.
And then HP, for a long time, was the leader in technology. Better chips, better cameras, better processing power, memory, all those things. So we have the late entrant into the market, Panasonic. And Panasonic looked around and said, okay, we can't do any of those things. We can't be sleek and stylish like Apple. We're not going to beat HP on technology. And Michael Dell already did the direct-to-consumer website. So we've got to do something else.
Yeah.
So they went and looked at the market and they said, okay, there are people in places where a typical laptop is a fragile item and it's going to get messed up. They're too delicate to go into this place.
Oh, okay. Like you mean you're talking like a construction site or something,
like
right?
a construction site,
right.
like and I actually have a story from that from a guy at Panasonic I used to work with. He tells a story of Panasonic came out with a Toughbook.
I remember that. Yes. Yeah.
Right. The ruggedized laptop. So the sales guy is one of their target opportunities was the Department of Defense. They wanted to sell this laptop to the military.
Okay. Sure.
So the sales guy, with one of the two prototypes in existence, shipped in from Japan. He had one of two.
50% of the existing
50% of the existing. He's at Camp Lejeune visiting the United States Marine Corps. He's got a squad of Marines with him. He's presenting or getting ready to present, and this squad is somehow shows up to listen. So he's got a squad of Marines in a gymnasium. They're sitting in bleachers. The sales guy gets called away, and not remembering where he was, he turns to the guy in charge of the Marines and hands him the laptop and says, "You guys test this out. Bet you can't break it."
Oh.
He comes back 15 minutes later, and as he told my friend, so secondhand information, as he told my friend, the laptop was reduced, he thinks, to every component part that it had come with. And the Marines were sitting back on the bleachers, looking innocent, and the guy he'd handed the laptop to said, "What would you like us to do next, sir?" And he said, "I think that's probably enough." But I had to tell that story just because I love it so much.
I love that.
Think about your audience, man.
Yeah.
But think
There's
about
a lesson in there.
That's right. That's right. But Panasonic successfully, as we know, cornered a piece of the market, the construction, maintenance, places where the laptop was going to get banged around. It was going to get dust on it. It was going to get water on it, and created for themselves a market that didn't exist until they came in and looked at it. So they didn't come in and compete with someone for an existing market. They made up their own market.
I like that.
So that's the idea of monopoly control. Once you figure that piece out, what do I do better than everybody else? And for most successful businesses, once the business is up and running and successful and the owner is thinking about getting out,
Yeah.
the mechanism to develop monopoly control is, there's two things I can tell you with some certainty. One, the business already does it. They already do one thing better than everybody else.
Huh. Okay.
And two, they do a whole bunch of other stuff too that clutters up the day. And the value is in paring away, reducing the number of services that you offer.
Yeah.
And focusing on doing one thing really well. And that's where the benefit is.
Do you think you're the guy to ask this question too, because you've worked with a lot of businesses. Do most businesses know what that advantage is, or do they have to think about it? I mean, how do they get there on that?
I think in my experience, they know what that thing is. So you'll hear, well, our best clients, and that's a good way into it. So what is the thing that clients come to you for, where they spend more money with you and they are really happy with the experience and the service and the product? What's the thing that your clients say, I'm trying to think of a good example. The people, here's one, landscaping company we worked with. The guys that you have come out and mow the yard and rake the leaves do a fine job. The people who come out and plant the mums in the fall do a fine job. That's great. The fact that you, as the landscape architect, as the designer, can create this oasis in my backyard where I can walk into the backyard and sit down on the bench, and I can't see the house, I can't see the neighbors, I can hear the water in the water feature that you told me I should get that I really didn't want to mess with, and all of the plants in this arrangement in this yard are native to Kentucky. And that was kind of important to me, and you built all of these things, and the benefit I get as your client of being able to walk into this sanctuary whenever I want is amazing. That business owner could cut his head count way down. And this is where it gets interesting, because you can make a couple of arguments.
Okay.
You could say, okay, Josh, landscape design is one and done, and I get paid on the maintenance.
Yeah.
Right? You just told me, yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the conversation. So, and I can't believe I haven't said this before now. It isn't that there is a recipe to follow that is going to guarantee success, or if there is, I don't know what it is. But there are a number of conversations that we should be having. And by having those conversations, we could balance out the factors and come up with the right answer.
Yeah.
And the right answer is going to be individual. It may be that in this business's case, the best thing for them to do would be to ramp up the maintenance, because that's recurring revenue and that's going to make the books look great. And that's how we sell the business for more money.
Yep.
Or we look at the monopoly control lever and we say, here's something we think we do better than anybody else. Let's do more of that and bigger installations, charge more money for it. And then we can get to the point where if you're building a hospital and you want a courtyard design, you're going to come to us and we're the ones who are going to do it.
You wouldn't go to anybody else. You'd be
Right.
you'd be the go-to. You'd be the go-to business. Yeah.
And so there are a couple of different ways that it can go. And like I said, I don't think there's any one answer. I think the answer
Right.
is in the business already.
Yeah. That's the beauty of like cooking, honestly, is you can get a recipe, you follow the recipe, you do a third of a teaspoon and go a teaspoon and blah, blah, blah. And boom, boom, you've got food every time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Business is a little bit of recipe and a whole lot of art, a lot of feel. There's other factors at play, and you're right. If it were as easy as a lot of business schools would have you imagine, that there would never be any business failures.
That's right.
Happen.
Yeah,
just wouldn't happen. So,
exactly.
So this is fascinating. This is good stuff. I like this. For business owners who are listening to you, Josh, who are thinking, this guy, I think I'd like to have a further conversation with. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Context Financial, CONTEXT financial.com. And I'm Josh Ackerman.
Very good. Got an email or anything that they can reach out to? I do,
Josh at contextfinancial.com.
Beautiful.
And the phone number, area code 859-514-1999.
Nice and easy. 1999. It's like a song like that somewhere. I can't remember. For those of you who are listening to this podcast who are thinking about maybe reaching out to Josh, I would encourage you to do it, because what you're hearing is exactly what you're going to get. There's not some odd, strange guy on the other end of the line. This is a guy that you can talk to and who will listen to you and work with you. If you are not a subscriber already, please hit the subscribe button and follow. That way, every time Josh puts out a new episode of his podcast, you'll be notified. You can give it a listen. And I would ask you also to do this. If you like this podcast, if you find it useful or interesting, tell people about it. Share. Say, hey, I'm listening to this podcast. It's great stuff. You want to get able to listen. Word of mouth is an underrated tool of promotion. It's great stuff, and it really means a lot, and we would appreciate you doing so. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker on behalf of Josh and everybody at Context Financial. I want to remind you, you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. Thanks so much for taking the time. See you next time.